Hi historians, today we are going to do work together. So what I'd like for you to do is get your social studies notebook, and in your social studies notebook open to the page that says Renaissance Notes page. So if you need to pause the video, go get your notebook, something to write with, come back, press play, watch the video, and follow along. By the end of this video, you should have an answer for question 1 and an answer for question 2. So I have a split screen here, and on the left I have an excerpt from an article that I can, so see how it says European Exploration 1400 to 1500, adapted from Discovery Education. So I took part of an article from Discovery Education. So you've watched that clip from Mr. Peabody and Sherman. And yes, I know that's a made-up story, but the Renaissance is not a made-up thing. The Renaissance is a time in our history. And so I just wanted to visit with you a little bit about what the Renaissance is. And then on our page, we're going to answer, why was the Renaissance a reason for Europeans to explore the world? So first, a little bit of information about the Renaissance. It says in the 1400s and 1500s, there was a new love for culture and scientific discovery in Europe named the Renaissance. And so that's what we saw in the clip of Mr. Peabody and Sherman, is that scientific discovery. Fifth graders, this was a time where most people relied on the church and their religion for answers. So when they were trying to notice things like, well, you know, it's dark for some time, it looks like the sun comes up and the sun comes down. And people had always just relied on religion. But then there were people making observations and thinking, wait a minute, like I noticed this pattern, and I think this pattern is happening for a reason. And so this idea of scientific thinking and experimenting and exploring and creating new technology. Now, was it anything near the technology we have today? No, absolutely not. But the flying machine and some of those other things that we saw in our Mr. Peabody clip lets us know that during the Renaissance, people were making observations and learning more about the world around them. Same thing with culture and art. People were really aware of being creative and creating things. So it says, during this time, people used scientific examination to explore how the natural world worked. This curiosity and spirit of discovery, which led to numerous inventions and scientific discoveries during the Renaissance, also led to a period of geographic exploration as individuals began to explore the seas and lands beyond Europe. So when it talks about how during the Renaissance, people were becoming more curious, and they had more of a, when it says a spirit of discovery, more of this feeling of, I don't want to just look out at what I see every single day. I think that there is more, and I want to see. So in our notes page, when it says, why was the Renaissance a reason for the Europeans to explore the world? So I'm using the article on the left. During this time, people were curious and had a spirit of discovery. Okay, so fifth graders, I want you to write this in your notebook on your page to answer. At any time, if you need to pause the video, write everything you need to write, and then press play to finish the video. Okay? Also, it says that curiosity and that spirit of discovery, that led to inventions. And so because there were inventions, that made it easier for people to explore. So I'd also like for you to write inventions. Okay, so during the Renaissance time, it's because people were During this time, people were curious and had a spirit of discovery. Inventions made it easier for people to explore. Please write that information on your notes page. Next, it says, how did different European countries compete with one another? So when we are studying exploration, we are going to find that the 3 countries we hear the most are going to be France, Spain, and England. So when it says European countries, that's most of the time the countries that historians are talking about, France, Spain, and England. So it says, although the ideas of the Renaissance contributed to the exploration of new lands, more practical concerns were at play. During this period, many European nations were in constant conflict with each other as they struggled to increase their power and wealth. So when it says European nations, so it's talking about those countries, the France and Spain and England, and constant conflict means that they're fighting. And so these countries are fighting each other because each country wants more power and more wealth. So our question says, how did European countries compete with one another? Well, they fought to get more power and wealth. Many of these nations believed trade with other countries was the best way to increase wealth. However, many of the land routes that were used for trade with Asia were controlled by other countries that blocked direct trade between European and Asian nations. As a result, European leaders began to seek new sea routes to Asia. European leaders like Spain's King Ferdinand, and the Portuguese prince, known as Henry the Navigator, financed explorers who wanted to travel across the seas. Along with the idea of looking for new trade routes, they also hoped to find new sources of gold, silver, and other valuables. Additionally, Europeans saw exploration as a way to bring Christianity to other cultures that lived in other lands. While some explorers sailed around Africa to Asia, others thought they could find a quicker route by sailing west. These voyages led to the unexpected discovery of new lands, as sailors bound for Asia came to the Caribbean islands and the continents of North America and South America. So over here when it says, how did different European countries compete with one another? So what they did is the countries fought with each, nope, don't do that. Sorry. The countries competed by trying to find the fastest trade route to Asia. The goal was to get more power and wealth. So the countries competed by trying to find the fastest trade route to Asia. So each country was sending their people on these explorations, trying to find the fastest trade route to Asia. And ultimately, some of them trying to get to Asia didn't make it to Asia at all, but ended up in the Caribbean islands, North America, or South America. Okay, so you should have your answer for question 1 written in your notebook, and you should have your answer written for question 2. If you didn't get that, pause the video, write what you need.